ladies. Welcome back to Be the Church, our discussion videos, our community discussion videos. This is week 6, and I'm so excited to be here with you ladies. Again, I'm Keely. I'm part of the Central Women team, and we're just going to go around really quick and introduce ourselves.
Perfect. Becky Thompson. Jen Walsh. Renee Hoon.
So you've already met us, so we're not going to go into big detail. But this week, Renee actually wrote, and we are so excited to just have like a deeper discussion on certain things that just wouldn't fit into this week, right?
Absolutely. Oh, there's so much.
I know.
So when you told me what my topic was, I was like, yes. I love this part of Acts because we get to the point where they've been doing Jerusalem and mainly Jewish converts at this point, and we've gotten through Paul's conversion, and we know that he's been set apart to go minister to the Gentiles, but he doesn't start right away. Right? So we're in that transition of, and I feel like we think of the apostles and we figured like they just were given an assignment and it was like immediate. But there's definitely preparation and other, we talked about persecution and other people that had to move and be ready for when that message was ready to be shared. And I loved this week. I loved, how it evolved, how Peter evolves, and how Peter's not perfect, but how God opens his eyes to the Gentiles, and just how I think Acts is wonderful too, because in the sense of when we read the Gospels, the disciples are there, and yet they're still struggling, but Jesus is like with them, right? And now here they are, and they experience success even without the physical presence of Jesus, which really lends to the power of the Spirit. And so we see Peter, come around when it comes to Gentiles, and we see Saul really kind of change to his Greek name Paul in an effort to reach out to the Gentile population that he was set apart for. So it's a cool time in the book of Acts. I was super excited to be writing the week. So
let's talk about that a little bit. So Paul's name, so we always, at least sometimes, we think that like, oh, he, when we talked about from death to life in your week, Jen, like he was made new, so God gave him a new name. Is that actually correct? I don't think so, right?
Well, yeah, we've talked about this, and when we write, we research or whatever, but it was my understanding, again, that Saul was his Hebrew name, and Paul was his Greek name, right? Yeah. So, but it would kind of make sense based on his life up until that point that he was mostly known as Saul because of who he was with at that point, which was mostly a Jewish population. But once he starts to actually going out to the Gentile population, it really, at that point forward in the book of Acts, he's now referred to by his Greek name, Paul. Yeah. And I know, Keely, you shared a wonderful story about your boys, and you have to share it because I love it so much.
Yeah. It's a cute
well, I want to tee it up by saying I didn't appreciate how much Paul did to find things in common with people who were not like him in order to share the message of Jesus. And I feel like even just the use of Paul is part of building that bridge to say, I have something in common with you. This is my Greek name as a kind of, extension of desire to connect.
Right, which is so good because like when he says that, instead of building a wall by saying his Jewish name, he's saying I can be Greek just like you. Yes. This is my Greek name. Let's build a bridge instead of a wall, which is just so powerful. So yeah, and the story for my kids is my family, we lived overseas for a little bit in the Middle East, and so when we had children, we specifically named them with names that can both be translated from English and Arabic. So depending upon where my kids are at or who they're interacting with now, like we'll have barbecues with our refugee friends or international friends, and especially if they're Arabic speaking, I just love it. It's so sweet. My kids, they'll introduce themselves like Joseph. He'll say, I'm Yusuf, which is the Arabic term of Joseph, and then Noah will say, I'm Nuah, and Sammy's name is interchangeable, and he's like 5, so he just says, I'm Sammy. And so
I just imagine their faces lighting up because it seems like something so small, but names are important. Like
so big.
Seeing someone and making an effort to get their name correct, getting finding that common ground is just so powerful. And I keep going back to, we got to go on an Amplify Peace trip together, and I had another similar moment with you. We were in the West Bank, and we were with these young Muslim girls, why that wouldn't happen to you necessarily. Like, I'm not like them, right? They, they're them and I'm me, right? But we sat around this table and they had they wanted to just talk about things that young women talked about. And I remember they got to you. They were kind of asking us, about how we met our husbands or, what we did. And you spoke to them in Arabic and with an Egyptian accent, which they picked up on right away.
Pretty bad.
But
My accent's pretty bad.
I will never forget their face. That was such a moment for me because you gave them so much value. I'm gonna tear up. They felt such worth that you attempted, even though you were out of practice, and I could.
I probably talked like a 2-year-old. I talked like a 2-year-old.
But you had the courage. But they really felt seen by you when you did that, and at that moment I was like, oh God, teach me all the languages, because it was such a beautiful moment. And then you were before me, and they kind of got to me, and one of the women was like, you look like us.
Yeah.
To me,
yeah, which is so powerful.
To me, and I was like, I'll be honest, I didn't have a good reaction to that, because again, you're kind of like, no, I'm not like you, and I had a real convicting moment of, this is something that you could use for common ground. Like, these women see you and they see some commonality just in your appearance that you're not being open to in this moment, and you need to kind of think about that. So it was a really special moment in our trip that we took with Amplified Peace. Gosh, that's been almost 3 years ago now, and I want to go back. But it just sitting around with women and finding common ground, which goes back to Paul in this week, in the sense of, bring up the scripture later where he says, I'll be all things to all men so that, I can save some, right? Yeah. And that sense of adaptability and trying to find what we have in common as opposed to what makes us different, and starting there for sure.
So let's talk about that a little bit from Becky, and I know Jen, we've all been on a global trip, right? And so how has that impacted you, and then how has it helped you see the need to build bridges like Paul did?
I know for myself, going over to Israel and Palestine, I did not do much research before I went. I kind of wanted to go and just really soak in everything that was there for me to learn.
Are you glad you did that?
I am so glad I did that.
I don't know.
I wish I would have read more. So that's funny.
I read one book, and I was like, oh, yeah, we'll just kind of see how this goes. And it was really cool going over there with not a lot of knowledge. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I was with people who had a lot of knowledge, so I felt safe in that aspect. But just getting to know all of these people that have gone through all of these different things that are so unlike me, that are so, having experiences unlike anything that we experience here in the United States, was humbling, but also it was just, I just saw so much of myself in them, and I was so surprised, because even though we've experienced different things, we have a lot in common as far as the feelings that we have, or the passions that we have, or the need that we feel, where we wanted to find that connection in each other. Being able to sit down with some of these women who have lost family members to war, lost children, and you think of yourself, you put yourself, what would it be like if I lost my husband or I lost my children? It made my heart ache for them, and to want to be there for them in any way that I could. And when I left and came back home, I really felt like I left a piece of me back there, and I can't wait to return someday. But it gave me a fresh outlook coming over back home, and just realizing, you don't have to go to another country to find people with different experiences and different ways of living than you have. We have that here. We have that in our neighborhoods. We have that down the street. We have that across the country. I mean, it's everywhere. And so it really inspired me to open up my circle, and like we had said in previous weeks, stand out, get in the fire, get in the messy, and get to know people and ask them about their stories. And I mean, really all it takes is sitting down with somebody and listening to them to be able to build that bridge.
Yeah. I would say definitely, I mean, the differences that we have, but then the commonalities also just really shine through. So I think on the trip when we were together, there was an experience that we had, and some of us were on a bus, maybe we were walking, but we saw mom holding a baby, crying, and we were actually in Bethlehem, and we were kind of rushing out pretty quick because some stuff was going down. And I'm not going to say everything that was going down. That was going down. And don't be afraid to go. And we immediately were like, the mama bear instinct in all of us, even the ladies who were there who didn't have children. And it was like just the experience of being a woman in society and having those experiences. Those are just really powerful moments where you can really come together. And I'll say that what you were touching on was just listening to people's stories. We have to do what is in Acts, and we have to be apostles, and we have to take the gospel and be witnesses and messengers of that. Yes. And we can do it here also. And so I had an experience recently where we had a woman come into our home who was from Libya, and we got her talking, and she taught us how to make kanafa. How do I say it?
Kanafa.
Yeah, you guys know what's up. Oh my goodness.
So good.
It's really good. Especially it's so fresh, right on the oven.
Yes.
So she taught us how to make it, and you guys, we were asking her questions, and she was just telling us about her life, and you could see her light up because I don't think anyone since she's moved here has asked her. No, I don't want to say that. There has not been a lot of instances where people just sit and listen to her, and she gets to talk freely and safely and openly. So she also was like, she kept going with mixing, and I was thinking, I mean, at some point we gotta cook it. Like, you know, we gotta stop mixing. And anyway, it was a 3-hour process to make this. It doesn't normally take that long, but because she was just yes, and so it's being that bridge builder, and I really do think we have to build those bridges, and we have to build relationships with people if we want to be able to share the gospel with them in a meaningful way. Yeah, because I could come at it with like a super power, like Jesus is the only way and all this stuff, and that's going to make people stand off. But if I can come to her and I know her hurts and her needs, and I can say, Jesus meets you right there. Like, he's actually right there. You might not even know it, but so you can connect in such a different and powerful way. And so that's one of the reasons like global trips are really powerful is because we need to have those experiences so we can really come in a posture of learning and then apply those in literally every scenario, every conversation that we have. And that's our job. And that's what these guys modeled so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the moment that I was talking about it, I was unknowingly building walls. You know what I mean? There was a it goes back to kind of what we were talking about unlearning, right? Like when you're in an uncomfortable situation, you don't know this person, you don't know a lot about their culture. Sometimes our protective instincts build walls when we should be, lowering the drawbridge to, connect in those instances. So there was some definite like self-awareness that came out of the global trip. And I tell people, it changes my outlook on a lot of things. Like, we talked about like, this is right and this is wrong, and you're like, but why? But why? Like, because that's how it's always been done in my family of origin. That's how.
Yeah, when you step outside your comfort zones, and I would say beyond your borders, beyond your backyard, beyond our boundaries, God's just going to reveal things about us and refine us, and also the things about the deepest need of His heart, which is to reach all people. And so I highly encourage you, ladies, for this week, as we wrap up this discussion. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I know I have. But go to page 127. And on it, pray about what your role is. And I know Renee wrote this beautifully, but just there's 5 different roles there. So just pray about where God is calling you into those roles. And if you're interested in going on a global trip, again, email us at women@centralaz.com, and we can get you linked up. Because, I think we can all say it's life-changing.